The road looked ordinary until the morning it learned to hold its breath. A yellow school bus easing through river fog, a driver with 12 years of quiet courage on the wheel, and 3 men who thought a bridge could be turned into a trap. Today you will ride that bus with us. You will feel the hush become a plan, and you will watch a single signal turn 30 small voices into one steady chorus. Before we begin, where in the world are you watching? Tell me in the comments so we can see our map of helpers grow. In the next minutes, you will meet Ray Collins, a man who speaks calm the way others speak loud. You will meet Emma and Grace and Noah and the twins who learn to stand like hinges in a doorway. You will see a white van angled wrong, a black pickup idling close, and a town waking up like a lighthouse turning. This is not a story about fear winning. This is a story about ordinary people choosing each other in time. Take a breath, settle in, and when you are ready, we will roll to the bridge together. The road rose out of the fog like a slow river, and the yellow bus glided through it with a patience that only comes from years behind the wheel. Ray Collins kept one hand easy on the steering wheel and one eye on the mirror. Children's voices flowed behind him like sparrows, light and nervous. The morning smelled of rain and wet leaves. The sky held its breath over the water tower and the old rail bridge. It was a morning that should have been ordinary, but it had edges. Ray was a quiet man who knew how to listen. He had driven this route for 12 years, and before that he drove. Cargo in the Army, not glamorous, just the kind of work where showing up on time meant someone else got to live their day safely. He wore a threadbare navy jacket with the school crest stitched by his late wife, the letter R over the heart. His daughter Amy said the jacket made him look like an old movie hero. Ray laughed when she said that, but he still wore it. Habit is a kind of armor. He knew every mailbox and puddle on Route 17. He knew where the roads narrowed and where the deer crossed in twos. He knew where the mill hands parked half on the gravel when the whistle blew early. And he knew the cadence of children's mornings, little rituals that tell you a town is still intact. Emma Brooks in the second row quietly humming to calm her nerves before a spelling test. The twins Liam and Luke Carter arguing about which cloud looked most like a dragon. Noah Reed in the back clutching a comic book and counting to 10 to keep a promise to his counselor. Ray let their noise shape his own breathing, steady, steady. The way a captain listens to the sea. He had all eyes too. Denise Park on dispatch with a voice like a lighthouse, always 3 steps ahead on the radio. Gus Miller the mechanic who believed every bolt had a soul, who tuned the bus on Saturdays so it purred instead of coughed. Ethel Briggs the crossing guard who waved at Ray with a salute handed down from her husband. And Principal Eleanor Whitlow, who never missed the morning threshold, clipboard pressed to her chest like a shield in a prayer. This little chain of people made the route feel unbreakable, not because nothing bad could happen, but because someone would be there when it did. Ray noticed the first wrong thing as a silence inside the noise, a hush that did not belong to weather or wind. Just past the curve by Benson Orchard, the black pickup that usually slept under a blue tarp was awake and idling. No license plate on the front. 2 silhouettes inside, no movement toward the coffee. Thermos on the dash, just watching, the kind of watching that makes your skin think before your mind does. He glanced in the mirror. The children were busy being children, and that was a mercy. Ray eased off the accelerator, not enough to alert, enough to feel the road breathe. He clicked the radio twice. A habit from the old days. It meant I am not alone. Denise answered at once anyway. Morning sunshine, Route 17 looking clear, rain in about 20. Do you need anything? Her voice softened the air. Ray said he was fine, just a slick patch. Near the orchard, he could hear her sipping coffee. He could hear the newsroom television behind her, whispering about budget cuts and storms upriver. Ordinary sounds, strong rope at the next stop. Little Grace Harper boarded with her inhaler. She tapped it twice on her palm like a ritual. Ray always noticed. He noticed the new scuff on Liam's shoe and the bruise on Emma's elbow from tumbling. Practice. He noticed Noah trying to hide a tear he had earned by missing his grandpa this morning. These small details made him feel the weight of his job like a real thing. Not a paycheck, not a schedule, but a promise. He met their eyes in the mirror, a silent good morning. The kind adults send when they want children to feel taller. The black pickup pulled out behind them, not close, not far, too tidy to be an accident. Ray kept breathing with the engine. The road pinched to a bridge where the river narrowed into a silver belt. He saw another vehicle up ahead, a white delivery van with its hazards blinking. Angled across the lane like it had given up, the driver door cracked open, but no one visible. The van made a crooked gate with the guardrail, a narrow gap that a small car might slip through. A yellow bus would not. The sky darkened a shade. Wind pushed the fog into the river like swept flour. It all looked like weather until you saw the geometry ray set his jaw. Not hard, just enough to keep a tremor from traveling into his hands. He checked the mirror again. The children were leaning into a joke Luke told. The twins high on victory because they had made Emma smile. He let them have it. He put on the left blinker, then the right, a little dance to test reflexes, to see if the pickup would answer. It did not. It simply matched his speed. Something in that quiet choreography told the truth. Not an accident, not a coincidence. A plan he remembered his Army instructor saying that fear is information. Use it, do not let it use you. Ray had never been a hero by headlines, but he knew steadiness. He knew signals, the kind that say turn here, the kind that say duck now, the kind that say trust me. He breathed and counted fence posts. 1, 2, 3, old habits stitching courage into motion. He tapped the PA mic twice without speaking. The click soft as a cricket. He reached for the tiny mirror he kept tucked in the coin tray. His wife had laughed at that mirror once, calling it his magician glass, but it let him see what normal angles could not. He tilted it to catch the pickup's windshield. 2 figures, one wearing a cap low, one bareheaded with a scar shining across the cheek like a white river. In the reflection, he caught a flash of a third figure in the white van's open driver. Door, a boot toe, still as a hunting cat. The geometry sharpened into a trap ray, checked the shoulder. Gravel and tall grass, soft mud at the edges from last night's rain. The bus would bog down if he tried to bulldoze around the van. He measured distances the way he used to measure convoy gaps. Bus length, guardrail height, the angle of the van, the width of the bridge. He mapped it against the rhythm of the engine in his bones. He needed time. He needed eyes. He needed heart steady behind him and hands ready if he asked. He looked at the children again, and the bus seemed to hush on its own. Kids feel a shift before they understand it. Emma stopped humming. Liam closed his mouth mid-joke. Noah folded his comic slowly like he was tucking away summer. Grace held her inhaler tighter. Their faces floated in the mirror like candles. Trusting him, because that is what children do when adults deserve it. Trust is a bridge you build every morning. Ray spoke. Voice level, warm as tea, teen. Listen, we might have a little delay on the bridge. Nothing to worry about. I just need everyone to do our safety drill exactly like we practiced. He made his words a blanket. He brought calm with the cadence. Breathe in, breathe out, sit tall. Hands where you can use them. Remember how we count. Remember how we help the person next to us. He never called them kids in a moment like this. He called them a team, because that is what they were when the day asked for Ide, glanced at the rear doors. He glanced at the ceiling hatches. He pictured the emergency kit under the seat, the whistle, the ABC cards he used for games to make drills less frightening. He felt the weight of the signal he might have to give, an old Army signal repurposed for gentle uses. It would have to travel down the aisle like a current, quick and quiet and brave. He did not let his face show the storm. He let it show ashore. The radio crackled. Denise again. Rain just bumped to sooner. Route 17. You still clear. Ray kept his voice easy. Received. Coming up on the bridge. See a stalled van? I will update. He made it sound like weather. He could hear her chair roll. He could hear paper move. He knew she was already pulling cameras from the traffic feed. He knew she would be a lighthouse again in seconds. But seconds are an ocean when a trap is closing. The pickup eased closer now, like a shadow cozying up to a candle. The white van's hazard lights ticked a steady metronome. The boot toe in the open door did not move. The bridge rails were close. Enough to read old stickers from field trips years ago. Bravery Day, Science Fair, Fall Jamboree. The town had always sent kids over this bridge with laughter. Ray felt that history rise up like a choir. Ordinary goodness is a muscle, and this was a day to flex the curve the bus a hair to the center line. The way a shepherd steps between lambs and wolves, his eyes found Emma in the mirror and gave a small nod, a cue only she knew, because she was his unofficial class captain, the one who helped new kids find their seats and made room for shy voices. He saw her square her shoulders. He saw Liam mirror her posture. He saw Noah wipe his eyes and sit ready. A bus becomes a family if you treat it that way, and families can move mountains when they move together. Ray's heart spoke in beats. It sounded like instructions. Wait, read, breathe, choose. He measured the inches between ordinary and danger. He felt the signal like a warm coin in his pocket. Not yet, but close. He slid his left hand to the switch panel, and with the smallest motion, he flicked the interior lights twice, once slow, once quick, a code he had built with his students over months of playful drills, a code that meant eyes forward, ears open, hands ready. He saw 30 small spines lengthen as if a piano chord had tuned them. In the mirror, he caught his own eyes, and for a second he saw his wife's, stitching the letter R right over his heartbeat, and he felt the spine of the town behind him, quiet, stubborn, ready. The bridge rose ahead like a narrow rib of steel and memory, river whispering below, rails close enough to touch. The white van sat canted across the lane like a tired mule, hazards blinking a heartbeat. The black pickup behind eased in until Ray could read the scuffs on its bumper. 2 figures inside, a third shape in the van's open door. Ray rolled the bus to a smooth stop a bus length short of the van. Air brakes sighed. The sound was a calm animal settling. Inside the bus 30 children became listeners, shoulders squared, eyes forward. A room full of candles, holding steady in a draft tray, kept his voice warm. Team, quiet mouths and open ears. We are doing river drill. Captains know what to do. Everyone. Pairs with the person next to you. Taller with smaller, hands visible, feet planted. Breathe in and count with me. 1, 2, 3. The counting was soft and sure. It made the fog less loud. Emma Brooks rose a fraction of an inch and nodded. The signal ran down the aisle like a thread. Older kids slid closer to littles. Grace tucked her inhaler into the front pocket where Ray could see it. Liam and Luke lifted their chins like small sentries. Noah folded his comic and set it flat on the seat. Green side up like a flag he had been entrusted to hold. Ray tapped the horn once, then twice in a quick echo. A code Gus had wired to the dash cam upload. The little camera in the corner woke like a wren, sending everything to dispatch. Denise Park answered within a breath. Her voice threaded through the static. Ray, I see your feed. Weather moving in. Is it the van by Benson Bridge? Her calm was a rope. Yes, ma'am, he answered level. Stalled van, pickup behind, holding position, children steady. Denise's chair rolled, paper moved, and another voice joined, Principal Whitlow on speaker. We are locking our doors and moving staff to the threshold. Sheriff's office notified. Stay with me. Ray, we are here outside. The van's door opened wider. A boot touched down, then another. A man in a faded hoodie stepped into view, bareheaded, pale scar curving across his cheek like a chalk line. He lifted his palms in a show of nothing to hide, then hooked a toe under something and dragged a flat coil of black up into sight. A spike strip. It shivered in the damp. Another figure. Slid from the passenger side and kept to the blind angle near the guardrail. The pickup doors did not open, but Ray could see the driver watching, cap low, jaw working a toothpick. The kind of stillness that lives in men who have done this before Ray. Let his breathing set the tempo. Remembered convoy rules. Control the angles, control the information, control the time. He flicked amber lights to red, stop arm out, mirrors. Adjusted, interior lights a soft glow. He wanted the children to see him and not the men. Wanted the camera to see everything. He wanted the world to recognize a bus as sacred ground. Even if the men outside had forgotten, he spoke without looking. Away from the glass, Emma. You start the back and move forward. Check partners. Say the word ready when a row is good. Liam and Luke, you are runners. If a little needs a hand, you trade places with honor. Grace, you count our breaths, Noah. When I ask for silence, your green card becomes a hush shell. You will show it, and we will all match it. This is our house. And we take care of our house. Emma's voice came in a steady thread. Back row ready, next row ready. The bus took shape around the words. Little bodies found balance. Small hands found small hands. Nervous feet found the floor. A few tears shimmered without falling. The kind of courage that looks like quiet. Ray moved his left wrist. Interior lights blinked twice. Slow then quick. The second layer of the code. This meant prepare to slide. Left 2 inches, shift weight. Make a tilt, not a rock. Gus had taught him how a bus could lean into its own strength on a crown of road. You could gain an inch of lane if everyone breathed together. He spoke again, softer. We will slide left on 3. We will do it like a dance. You will barely feel it. It will give us room. And you will make me proud. 1, 2, 3. The bus exhaled. As a single body, a small shift, a settling. The right tires kissed the painted line closer. The rear angle opened a breath of space toward the guardrail, enough to make the rear emergency door whisper about possibilities. Outside, scar cheek. Paused, recalculating. His eyes took in the angle. He pointed at the back of the bus and made a circle sign with 2 fingers. The man by the rail nodded and moved like a shadow along the van's flank. The pickup crept until its grill was a wall, and the mirrored niece's voice came low now, like someone lighting a lantern under a blanket. Sheriff Deputy Alvarez is 3 minutes out. Ethel is at the far crossing with her whistle. Gus is on his way in the wrecker. He can block the south end if needed. Do you want me to call Walt from the post office? He runs that route near the bridge. Ray pictured Walt's long stride and steady gaze. He pictured the way community is. A set of hands that know where to reach. Yes, please. And patch me to Eleanor if she is still on. Principal Whitlow breathed into the line. I am here, Ray. The 4th grade is inside. Staff at doors. We practice for days like this. You are not. A lone scar cheek lifted both hands higher. Palms out, a pantomime of concern. Then he spoke, voice thin through the glass. Hey, driver, we got a problem up here. Van lost power. Need to roll your kids off while we clear it. Quick and easy. All safe. We will walk them around to the shoulder. Ray did not answer. He knew that tone. A making nice tone. A tone that wanted him to forget the spike strip coiled like a sleeping snake. He kept his face kind. He raised his palm to the glass in a mirror of the man's gesture. But his eyes did not smile, the way a shepherd meets a wolf without blinking. Tapped the PA mic twice, the little click cricket, then once more. The 3rd tap sent a prewritten line to Denise. Phrase alert. Ray used the line they had agreed on in a training he had insisted on the year after his wife passed. We have a lost lunchbox. Say again, a lost lunchbox. The phrase meant multiple adults needed at the bus and law enforcement on priority. It meant keep the children inside and prepare for a coordinated exit if the bus were breached, Denise repeated. It into the chain, calm as weather, copy, lost lunchbox, and the county moved as one. Doors locked, phones lit, radios leaned toward speakers. The man by the rail moved toward the rear, crowbar loose in his grip. Ray saw his reflection in the magician. Mirror. He saw the distance from the handle of the emergency door to the first seat back. He saw Liam slide his knee into place beside Noah like a hinge. He saw Emma position herself at the aisle break. He saw Grace's lips counting breath like a tiny drum. The pickup driver leaned out of his window and spat into the road. Then he set the truck in park and swung his boots to the asphalt. Cap still low, posture loose, but the loose of a coil, not of a nap. Ray knew the moment to choose had come. You do not choose fear, you choose your people. He folded his fingers around the edge of the seat like an anchor, and he gave the signal. It was their signal, old and new together. He lifted his right hand level with his shoulder and opened and closed it twice. Like a bird testing wind, interior lights blinked once in answer. Emma's chin dipped. Noah lifted the green card high for one count, then lowered it to his lap. The older kids leaned subtly to shield the littles. Grace raised her free hand and made a slow circle in the air. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Every tiny body matched the rhythm then. Ray pressed the palm of his hand to the glass where Scar-Cheek could see it. He held the man's eyes, and he sounded the horn in the pattern they had practiced on rainy days when games were allowed. Long, short, short, a riverboat note and 2 oar strokes. The sound rolled over the bridge and down into town like a bell. Ethel at the far crossing heard it and lifted her whistle. 1 long, 2 short, returning the call. Denise keyed the county alarm. Walt turned his head on the jogging path like a bird dog catching a scent. The plan stitched itself into motion the way a quilt warms a chest. Piece by piece, hand by hand on the bus, the hush deepened, the hush of decision. Ray slid his thumb to the rear door release and rested it there. Not yet, but close. He watched Scar-Cheek flinch at the answering whistle. He watched the man by the rail look over his shoulder. He watched the pickup driver lift his head to find the source of a town waking up. Ray's face stayed soft, eyes bright. The interior of the bus glowed like a small chapel. The children steady in their pews, ready to move as one when he asked. Scar-Cheek skimmed his palm across the spike strip like he was petting a sleeping thing. His eyes stayed on Ray, smile thin. The man by the rail shifted the crowbar to his left hand and tested the rear emergency door handle. He learned what Ray already knew, that a bus door is humble but stubborn. It loves to stay closed when children need it to. The pickup driver walked up the center line with the lazy tilt of a man who wants you to think he is not in a hurry. Cap low, hands out to the side driver. Let us help, he said in that easy tone. Rain is coming. Kids will catch a chill. Open the front and we will walk them around, quick and kind. Ray kept his hand on the glass and did not move. Kindness is a language he knew well, and he knew when it was being spoken without heart inside the bus. The hush was strong and alive. Emma Brooks met Ray's eyes in the mirror and tapped her knee twice. Runners ready. Liam and Luke slid their feet under the seats to anchor for. Another lean. Noah lifted the green card half an inch and froze like a statue. Grace Harper's lips drew circles in the air, small and steady. Breathe in, breathe out. The older kids had made a shield of backpacks near the rear, soft hills that would slow any hand that tried to reach through. Little hands found belt straps and seat edges, a chorus of quiet bravery. Ray felt the bus become a single living thing. All those hearts deciding to be one heart. Denise Park's voice came again, softer, closer, like she was sitting on the step beside him. Ray, your camera is clean. Sheriff Alvarez is 2 minutes now. Gus is 1 minute to the south end with the wrecker. Walt is off the jogging trail and is in his postal truck. He is coming from the north approach. Ethel is at the far side in her vest. She has eyes on the rail. Principal Whitlow added her breath to the line. Ray, library doors are secured. Coach Daniels is on the front steps. Choir room is quiet. You hold the bridge, we hold the school. Community's a circle. And you are the bright point today, Ray nodded, without moving his head. He clicked the switch that brings the exterior speaker to life. He let his voice travel through the grill of the bus like a calm bell. Sir, we are waiting for law enforcement and a tow. The children will not be exiting. Please step away from the doors and the back of the bus. His words were gentle and unbreakable. The pickup driver lifted his chin and laughed, a humor without warmth. Then he stepped closer until the brim of his cap touched glass. The crowbar at the rear made a soft metal kiss against the door seam. Scar Cheek signaled with 2 fingers again. A man by the rail wedged his shoulder and Lean Drag gave the next signal, the one that was theirs alone. He rubbed his thumb and forefinger together near the mirror. Like he was making a match, Emma caught it and whispered a single word, lantern, and the older kids reached up and cracked the roof hatches to the first notch. Not enough to open, just enough to vent the air and bring in a thread of river mist. The cabin cooled, breath slowed, eyes sharpened, and the hatch sensors also chirped a note Denise could see on her feed. A tiny star lighting on her console, proof that inside the bus calm was a craft and not an accident. Ray slid his palm to the hazard panel and touched the strobe. The forward warning light began its slow blink, not frantic, just steady. A lighthouse pulse over wet asphalt. Scar Cheek squinted against it. A small win. The man with the crowbar shifted his footwork to adjust. Ray eased the gear into neutral and let the bus roll an inch on the crown of the bridge. The move was no more than a sigh, but it sent a small angle change down the frame. The crowbar bit awkwardly. The man at the rear had to check his balance. Backpacks slipped into the gap and made the opening even meaner. The bus had become a gentle animal guarding its young. From the north end came the first twist of the morning. Not siren yet, not engine yet, but the bright flashing triangles of a postal truck nose. Walt had nosed his boxy white truck onto the bridge shoulder like a chess piece slid into a fork. Hazard lights throwing amber against fog, he stepped out wearing his wool cap and the jacket with the flag patch he never removed. His long stride made short work of the distance to the rail. He placed 2 reflective triangles in a fan so the pickup would see not just a bus, but a field of warnings. Then he lifted a palm to Ray and made a small circle with his finger in the air, a sign they had used for years on icy mornings. I am here. Take a breath. We hold together. The pickup driver changed his tone. His voice got louder and flatter. Open the door now, he said, and the crowbar began to pry for real. Ray saw the rear seal bend a hair, not enough to break. Enough to whisper that time was a fuse. He reached under his seat and slid out a folded, reflective triangle of his own. He cracked the driver window 2 inches. Rain scent rushed in. He held the triangle so the strobe bounced off it and sent a blade of light into Scar Cheek's eyes. Scar Cheek flinched and lifted his hand. In that flinch, Ray heard the old instructor again. Fear is information. Use it. Do not let it use you, Denise. Murmured into his ear, 1 minute, siren lev. Deputy Alvarez is past the feed store. Gus is at the south rail with the wrecker. He is blocking the line of retreat. Walt is holding north. You have a cradle, Ray. You are the center of it. A county map on her screen was no longer lines and symbols. It was people who had said yes to each other. This is how a place becomes a home, by rehearsing courage before. The day asks for it. The man at the rear planted his boot and heaved. The door latch complained. The backpacks bowed. A little whimper escaped from somewhere in the middle rows and then went still. Emma lifted her hand. 3 fingers up, the signal. For walls, Older kids shifted again and made a human brace without touching a handle. Liam and Luke set their shoulders like small pillars. Noah brought the green card high and held it like a traffic flag. Grace counted out in a whisper. 1, 2, 3, 4. Every small chest rising and falling on the beat. The bus did not panic. It gathered itself. Ray moved. Not fast, just true. He stood in the well and pulled the long orange handle that primes the air horn to its deepest voice. He did not blast yet. He waited until Scarcheek leaned in to look through the glass at the angle of the latch. Then he gave the riverboat call again. Long, short, short. The sound slammed into the steel and slid along the rail. Down the river, into town. Ethel at the far crossing raised her whistle and threw the pattern back. And in the same moment, a new sound arrived. The wail of a sheriff siren cresting the hill. A sound like a promise being kept. Scarcheek swore and stepped back. The crowbar man hesitated. Wolves do not love bright noise. The pickup driver turned his head toward the north and saw the postal truck and the triangles and Walt's long silhouette. The truth of the trap moved across his face. Trapped not by violence, trapped by community, by angles planned by people who feed each other's cats when someone is away. He reached for his waistband, and Ray saw the shift of muscle at the hip. A movement as old as trouble. Ray's hand found the dash radio, and his voice found steel. Denise, they are reaching. And Denise did not answer with fear. She answered with a steady, eyes on, officers on. Old Gus's wrecker rolled its bulk onto the south rail, a metal beast with a kind heart. He placed it not nose to nose, but at a tilt that made the pickup's exit a bad geometry. His floodlights came up, pale and broad. They pushed the fog back. 5 yards, enough to erase shadows. The pickup driver froze under the new brightness. The crowbar man faltered again. Scarcheek's pupils pinched to slits. And in that wash of light, something else shifted. The white van's cabin lights flicked on, just for a breath. And Ray saw a shape in the passenger seat he had not seen before. Small shoulders, a blanket, a face, a teenager trying to make themselves invisible. Eyes wide and wet. Surprise cut through him. The trap was not clean. It carried its own frightened heart. Inside Itre felt the plan flex. The second layer he had kept in his pocket since the first week of school rose to the top of his mind. The plan for when a danger is also a child. He thought of his wife threading a patch on his jacket while their daughter slept on the couch. He thought of every time a grown mistake carried a young witness. He lowered the triangle. He softened his jaw, and he spoke through the exterior speaker with a warmth he had saved for the hardest days. Son, I see you in that van. You are not in trouble with me. You keep your eyes on me and keep breathing. We are going to walk you out of this. The words were quiet, but they were a key in a lock. The boy's gaze snapped to Ray and held like a rope. Deputy Alvarez's cruiser slid into view at the crest. Lights painting the fog in red and blue. Sirens singing low now. Not a scream. A call to order. Ethel's whistle cut. Walt lifted both hands level with his shoulders. Gus leaned on his door and nodded once. Denise's voice became a braid of instruction to a dozen radios. And on the bus 30 small faces watched their driver stand like a lighthouse in a storm and then lean toward the sea, not away from it. Ray lifted his right hand to shoulder height and opened and closed it twice. The bird testing the wind, the signal that meant ready the hatch. Ready the rear. Wait for my word. We move when the county breathes in with us. In the mirror he saw Emma's chin dip. Liam and Luke locked eyes and became a hinge. Noah tucked the green card to his chest like a promise. Grace drew a circle, so slow it could have been a clock. Outside, Scarcheek saw none of it. He only saw a man in a threadbare jacket and a towel arriving. He spat again and squared his shoulders for a shove. Unaware that he had already lost to something larger than Force *, Deputy Alvarez rolled in low and wide. cruiser angled so the engine block became a shield, lights washing the fog in red and blue. His voice lifted on the loudspeaker. Hands where I can see them. Step back from the bus. The pickup driver froze for a breath, then tried a half smile that did not touch his eyes. Scar-Cheek kept the crowbar man working the rear seam, like it was a can he could open if he leaned hard enough. Ray stood in the well and lifted the exterior mic again. Calm and close, deputy. There is a kid in the van, passenger side, small. Frame under a blanket, scared and watching. He needs a way out that does not break him. The radio crackled. Alvarez's reply came tight and steady. I have him. Hold your line. On my count, the van is our first move. Ray nodded once. His hand hovered over the rear door release. He turned so the children could see his face. He let them see not fear but invitation. This is the part where we do what we practiced, he said. Lantern and walls together. Grace sets the breath. Emma sets the count. Liam and Luke become the hinges. Noah holds the hush shell high and does not shake. Eyes on me, hearts together. The little ones straightened. The older ones leaned into the role they had earned. A small nation with a single anthem alt moved along the rail like a Huron, male. Hook in hand, he was not a fighter. He was a fixer. He reached the spike strip at the van's front tire and glanced at Ray. A small tilt of his chin asked for permission. Ray gave the smallest nod, and Walt slipped the hook under the black coil and flicked it into his hands. The coil jumped like a surprised snake. The pickup driver swore and took a step. Alvarez's voice cut the air clean. Do not. Hands high. Eyes up. The pickup driver spread his fingers and lifted them. The crowbar man faltered, scar cheeks. Jaw tensed, calculations shifting faster now. Gus climbed from the wrecker with the ease of a man whose muscles remember hay bales and engines. He did not charge. He set a chain on the rail post with a clank that sounded like a church bell. Then he lifted his flood lamp, another notch, and bathed the rear corner of the bus in a broad white that erased sneaking. Ethel at the far end stood, on the painted white line in her orange vest, whistle ready. She was small, but there are some people the world learns not to move. The bridge held its breath with them. The river whispered. The town watched. Ray lifted his hand to his shoulder and opened and closed it twice. The bird testing wind. The signal moved through the rows like a warm current. Emma's chin dipped and her eyes flicked to the roof hatch. Liam and Luke adjusted their feet. Noah slid the green card up. Grace drew wider circles. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Ray said on the exterior speaker in a voice meant for the boy alone. Kiddo, when you hear 2 short notes from the horn, open the passenger door and step onto the white line and make yourself small. Deputy will be there with you in 2 steps. You look at me until you see his hand. Do not look at anyone else. Keep breathing like the count. The boy under the blanket nodded, small and fast. A swallow of faith between strangers. Alvarez set his stance, one palm up for stillness, the other ready to wave the boy. He called without shouting. Partner, eyes on me. You are coming to the sound of my voice. You are not in trouble. The man with the crowbar dug in again. Metal complained. Backpacks bowed. A small shoe slid and then found grip again. Liam bent his shoulder deeper, and Luke matched him. Emma braced her knee against the aisle like a post. Noah lifted the green card higher, and the bus inhaled as one. An orchestra of small courage, poised at the downbeach. Ray breathed and let the years of training settle into the single second that mattered. Then he pulled the horn. 2 short notes. Oar strokes in fog. The boy threw the blanket aside, popped the latch, and swung the passenger door open to the white line. Alvarez moved like a door, swinging on a well-oiled hinge. Quick and sure, he lifted the boy behind the cruiser's shield in one smooth arc. The boy's breath hitched on the microphone for a heartbeat, and then steadied into Grace's circle. The pickup driver flinched again, not fear of siren, fear of a plan working around him. Scar-Cheek snapped his head toward the van and barked an order. The crowbar man looked back for direction and lost the angle he had carved. Ray saw the rear latch spring back that half-inch he needed. Not to open, to jam. He gave the next signal with a soft sweep of his hand. The slide left, and 30 bodies eased weight to the aisle edge like reeds bending to a shared wind. The bus frame took it, loved it, pressed its right rear corner in two. The guardrail with the tender strength of a tree nuzzling a fence. The seam at the rear door pinched tight. The crowbar clanged and slipped. The man staggered half a step and smacked his shoulder into the van. A bright clang that said the day had changed its mind. Scar-Cheek saw it too. He reached for something at his belt. Alvarez shouted again, hands up, and in the same wash of color, Walt tossed the spike strip over the rail into the water with a neat arc, a dark ribbon swallowed by pale current. The pickup driver surged like a dog against a leash, then froze when Gus's floodlight pinned him like a theater cue. And from the far end came another sound, another layer. Other cars stopping at the barricade Ethel had made with her body and her whistle. Teachers in doorways watching. Parents on sidewalks holding breath instead of reaching. Discipline of a town that trusts the right hands inside the bus. A small voice rose. Grace counting, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ray, let that be the heartbeat. He looked at Emma and saw not a child but a captain. He looked at Liam and Luke and saw bricks. In a wall, he looked at Noah and saw a standard bearer. He felt the bus ready the way you feel a ship want to turn with the current. The plan had a third layer, the one for when the outside tried to crush in from two sides. He slid his thumb under the edge of the driver's side safety latch and unhooked the long red strap that hung above the stair. He had tied a whistle to it. Months ago, with a strip of cloth from his wife's jacket, he tugged it once. A low note answered. A promise that when the front door moved, it would be only because he said so. Scar-Cheek lunged for the van door and yanked. Found nothing helpful there now. His anger flashed bright and then dimmed into calculation. He pivoted toward the rear of the bus again. Alvarez stepped forward, voice flat. Do not test this line. The pickup driver broke then, not as a warrior. As a stubborn man used to getting his way, he charged 2 steps toward the bus. Gus took 1 step off the wrecker and set his boot on the lane with the authority of a mountain. Ethel's whistle split the morning like a silver blade. Walt lifted his hook like a shepherd lifts a staff. The pickup driver stopped at the weight of so many ordinary people, refusing to move. Ray pressed his palm to the glass again. Steady as a metronome, he spoke through the speaker. Men, you are cornered by care, not by guns. Look at yourselves. A teenager is safe now. There is a sheriff behind you and a town around you. You can walk backwards with your hands up and leave this bridge with your names and your breath. Or you can try to take something that is no longer available. Which one is it going to be? Scar-Cheek looked at him. The crowbar man looked at the river. The pickup driver looked at the boy tucked behind the cruiser, and something in his face softened and then went hard again. Old loyalty and new truth wrestling in the space behind his eyes. Denise's voice braided with Eleanor's now. Both steady, Ray. Counselors are ready at the school. The library warm. Cocoa packets lined like soldiers. The choir will sing at first bell. We will make this right in hearts as well as in law. Hold a little longer. You have them where they can see themselves. Ray eased his shoulders down. He nodded once to the children. Almost there, he murmured, and they nodded back. Tiny priests and priestesses in a chapel of vinyl seats and shared breath. Alvarez moved the cruiser another foot forward. A chess piece closing a file. Siren tapered, voice amplified into a plain sentence. Hands on your head and step back. Last call. And through the fog came a second cruiser. Then a third. The bridge was now a room with walls. Ray lifted the horn cord one more time. Not a command. A benediction, long, short. The sound crossed the water and returned in echoes from the mill. from the church steeple, from the windows of the school where children would learn this day that safety is not the absence of danger. It is the presence of people who choose each other. For a long second, the bridge felt like a held breath. Sirens curled low at the edges, red and blue softening in the mist. The men outside balanced on the edge between stubborn and broken. Inside the bus, the children held their lines like young oaks in wind. Ray let the silence spread just enough to make room for choice. Then he gave the signal they had saved for the moment the day needed a new center. His right hand rose to shoulder height, opened and closed twice, and then traced a small circle in the air. Lantern to lighthouse, walls to chorus. Move with the county's breath, and let your sound be your spine. Emma Brooks answered first, not with words, with a tone, a single note she had learned in choir. On Tuesday afternoons, round and low and steady, Liam and Luke matched it, then Noah, then Grace, then the row behind them, the bus filled with a hum that did not tremble, a river note that wrapped the little ones and reached the glass. It was not loud, it was sure, the kind of sound that reminds hands they are meant to open, Ray had taught them this on rainy days when thunder made small shoulders jump. If you can hum together, you can hold together. He watched their chests rise and fall in the same slow count. He watched fear trade places with Focus Deputy Alvarez, lifted his palm, and lowered it in time with the hum. His other hand floated near his radio. The second cruiser slid a foot to seal the north lane. Gus brought the floodlight a breath higher, so there were no corners to hide in. Walt set his mail hook down and rolled an empty mail cart into the center line. Like a little barricade on wheels, Ethel raised her whistle to her lips, but did not blow. Her eyes on Scar Cheek, like a teacher who has seen every bad idea before it was born. Ray touched the exterior mic. His voice braided itself with the hum. Men, hear that sound. That is 30 children remembering who they are. You can either be the reason they learn fear or the reason they learn mercy. Turn around, lace your fingers, look at the river. Let the day stop here. He did not bark it, he offered it, a bridge between one life and another. Inside the van, the teenager heard his own breath find the hum and settle. He pushed his shoulder a little deeper behind the cruiser door and peeked once at Ray. The glance of a boy who had decided which voice to follow. The pickup driver's jaw worked like he was chewing an old nail. His eyes flicked to the boy, then to Scar Cheek, then to the road that was no longer a road, but a room with walls of light and people. Scar Cheek's fingers flexed around the crowbar that was not in his hand anymore. When had he dropped it? He did not know, only that his palm stung, and the metal lay at his boots like a shed skin. He had thought the clank was victory. Now it sounded like a door closing gently behind him. He looked at Ethel and saw not an obstacle, a person, a tiny woman with a wedding ring catching the red and blue. A life that had chosen to stand still. Ray shifted the weight of the bus, a whisper to the left. A chorus of small bodies flowed with him like grasses. The right rear kissed the guardrail deeper and made the rear seam laugh at the idea of prying. The front door strap sat against his wrist like a leash on a strong dog that will only move when invited. He breathed in with Grace's count and spoke again. You want to move something on this bridge. Move yourselves, hands laced, step back. Breathe with us. The boy in the van mouthed the word please, not to Ray, to Scar Cheek. A thread tossed. Across a river, Alvarez gave his own signal, a small chop of the hand to the other deputies, the move they had rehearsed 100 times in parking lots and fairgrounds. Close without charging, speak without shouting, use the space like a tool. One deputy slid to the pickup's rear quarter, one to the van's far side, one held center with Alvarez. Their boots whispered on the wet asphalt. Their vests glowed. Dull under the fog, they looked like what they were. Neighbors who had studied hard for this test. The hum inside the bus did something to the morning. It pulled time into a manageable size, The children were not statues. They were instruments. Emma's pitch held. Liam and Luke adjusted the volume like a dimmer as the deputies moved. Noah kept the hush shell close, green against his chest like a leaf that had decided to weather the storm. Grace drew circles big enough to hold the whole bus, her inhaler visible and ready and unnecessary. She was breathing like a metronome now, and 30 small bodies followed her tempo. Scar Cheek's shoulders slumped a fraction. The kind of slumping that begins as calculation and ends as confession. He lifted his hands chest high, not all the way, not yet, but away from his belt. The pickup driver's mouth twisted, and he took a half-step forward. Walt's mail cart bumped his shin with a gentle insistence, and he looked down, confused by the absurd smallness of it. A cart with no letters telling him to stop. He looked up and found Gus watching him with an expression that did not hate him and did not fear. Him only weighed him. That unblinking measure turned something he had wanted to do into something he no longer wanted to own. Ray felt the moment fold. He wrapped it with words that had saved him once on the worst road he had ever driven. There is always a first step. Back to the right thing, take it. We will meet you there. Scar Cheek's hands rose another inch. The crowbar man swallowed hard and put his palms on his head like a man remembering a drill he had laughed at. The pickup driver clung to his last. Posture of defiance, chin up, shoulders set, but his eyes slid again to the boy. The boy did not look away. He kept his gaze on Ray, and then on the driver, and back again. A line drawn between two shores from the school. Came a sound so faint it could have been imagined. A piano scale, then a chord, the choir teacher warming. Up early because worry had pushed her from bed, the music rode the fog like a thin gold wire. It reached the bridge just as Emma breathed and let the hum lift a notch higher. Harmony found them without anyone telling it what to do. 2 or 3. Brave voices above the drone. A ripple of courage made of music and breath. Scar Cheek blinked fast. His scar whitened as the blood left his face. He closed his eyes once like a man in church. Then he laced his fingers on top of his head where everyone could see. Alvarez stepped in, calm and precise. Thank you. Keep breathing. Step back. Palms high, eyes forward. Deputies mirrored the posture. The pickup driver's last anchor snapped when the boy whispered the word again. Please. He lifted his hands in a jerk and then steadied them. The deputies moved without heat, wrists secured, bodies turned, eyes still on the river. Ray did not. Cheer. Ray did not sag. He kept the hum going with the children until the cuffs clicked and the men were no longer a decision to be made. They were people to be processed and lives to be sorted by a different set of hands. The bus felt taller. Not lighter, just taller, like a tree that had survived its first real wind. Ray lowered his hand, and the hum softened on its own. Grace brought the circle small and let it rest. Emma looked to Ray, waiting. Liam and Luke shook out their shoulders. Like little athletes after a play, Noah unfolded the green card and slid it into his pocket, as if returning a flag to its case. Alvarez gave a small nod toward the front bumper, a signal that the line was holding, and the next choice belonged to Ray. Ray touched the radio. Denise. Status. And Denise answered with a smile in her voice. Secure at the bridge. School ready to receive. Counselors and Coco at the door. Choir warming the halls. Gus on site. Walt on site. Ethel standing like a lighthouse. You can bring our team in when you are ready. Principal Whitlow added, front doors open, staff in place. We will meet them on the steps with quiet and kindness. Ray looked down the aisle at 30 faces that had chosen courage without being asked twice. He felt the ache in his ribs that comes after you have held them wide for a long time. He let that ache be gratitude. He turned the exterior mic on one more time. Spoke not to the men now, to the boy. You did hard work today, kiddo. Keep your eyes on Deputy Alvarez and walk with him to the cruiser. We will be right behind you. He turned to the bus team. Listen, We are going to finish our river drill. Front to back, careful feet, no hurry. Hands on the rail and on a partner. Hum low if your knees feel wobbly. Breathe like grace. Look at Emma or me. We are going to roll. Off this bridge and into a school that is ready to hold us. This is what finishing looks like. Emma stood and set the count. 1, 2, 3, rise. The aisle filled with the choreography of 100 mornings, sharpened by one extraordinary one. Liam and Luke took the first pair of littles. Noah set himself at the hinge of the last row to shepherd the very small. Grace tucked her inhaler, where Ray could see it, and took the hand of a first grader whose eyes were an ocean. Ray eased the bus into gear and let it creep. The cruisers made space. The floodlights stayed bright. The postal truck waited like a friendly wall. The wrecker held the south. The town kept its breath even, and the bridge finally exhaled. The bus rolled off the bridge like a ship finding open water. Cruisers parting enough to make a lane. The wrecker standing guard. The postal truck a friendly wall. Ray kept the hum low with the children. Steady as breath, he felt the engine as. A heartbeat under his shoes. The town's buildings came into view through thinning mist. Brick and flag and bell. Principal Eleanor Whitlow stood on the steps with teachers at her shoulders, mugs steaming in their hands, a lane of welcome instead of a gauntlet. The choir teacher on the landing, with her piano already singing warm chords through the open doors. Cocoa and cinnamon and rain in the air. A place ready to hold the day. Ray brought the bus to the curb and set the brake. The air sighed like a tired animal settling. He stood and turned so every child could see his face. Team, we finished the drill the way we started. With care, front to back, one line. Hand on the rail and on a partner. Eyes on me or on Emma. Hum, if your knees feel like leaves. Breathe like Grace has shown us. Liam and Luke, you carry the hinge. Noah, you are our last look back. We are going to cross to the steps where people who love you are waiting. This is the way through. Emma set the count in that choir voice that had held a bridge. 1, 2, 3, rise. The aisle filled with small choreography, backpacks lifted, shoelaces checked by older hands. The littles planted their feet and found balance with the rail. Grace drew slow circles and smiled at anyone whose breath caught. Liam and Luke took first graders, one in each hand like ushers. Noah waited at the rear to shepherd the last two small boys who always forgot to zip their coats. Ray opened the door with the long red strap. The whistle tied to it gave a low, friendly note. Not a warning, a welcome. Morning air flowed in, cool and damp and alive outside. Deputy Alvarez kept his voice calm and low, his eyes on the men who were now choices completed, hands laced, wrists secured, faces turned to the river. A second deputy stood with the teenager behind the cruiser, a blanket over his shoulders now. The boy's eyes found Ray across the small distance, like a traveler spotting a lighthouse again. Ray held that gaze and tipped his head, not a nod of command, a nod of belonging. You did it, kiddo. Keep coming. The boy swallowed and stood a little taller inside the blanket. Principal Whitlow met the first pair at the steps. Welcome home, she said like a prayer. Cocoa for warm hands, counselors for warm hearts, library open, choir room ready. Coach Daniels waited with a stack of soft blue fleece blankets. Teachers lined the path with the soft choreography of people who drill for fires and hope for mornings like this to never happen and are ready when they do. Ethel Briggs stood at the curb in her orange vest like a tiny general and saluted every child as they passed. Her whistle silent now, her eyes bright. You did well, she said to each one, and each one seemed to grow an inch taller in that brief. Second Gus Miller leaned against the wrecker and let out a long breath he had been holding since the first horn call. He looked at the bus like an old friend who had just run a marathon. He patted the fender with a mechanic's tenderness. Good girl, he murmured. Then he began checking the rear seam with his eyes, making a map of small repairs and new reinforcements. Walt stood beside him with his wool cap in his hands and a grin he could not hide. He had never thrown a spike strip into a river before. It would make a story at the counter of the diner for years. But for now, he just watched the line of children and counted them the way a certain kind of man counts blessings. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 30. Ray stepped down last and stood at the door as each child passed. A hand on each shoulder. A word for each name. Small things that weigh like anchors. Emma, Captain, proud of you. Liam and Luke. Hinges and heart. Thank you, Noah, standard bearer. Steady as a lighthouse. Grace, you are our breath. You could teach anyone in this town. Cheeks flushed, eyes bright, jackets damp from mist. They moved into the school and into the music and the cocoa and the soft murmur of adults who know how. To make a storm become a lesson in belonging, Alvarez approached with the boy. The blanket slipping as the teenager pushed messy hair off his forehead. He stopped at the bottom of the steps and looked at his shoes. Then up at Ray. My name is Tyler, he said, voice small but not broken. He said it like a person introducing himself after a bad dream. Ray nodded and lowered himself to one knee, so his eyes were even with the boys. Tyler, you did the brave thing when it mattered. You looked at me, and you came to the voice that wanted you safe. That is a turn you will remember. Alvarez's voice was gentle. Ray, Mom's on the way. She sounded scared and grateful at the same time. Ray looked at the boy again. You want a place to sit that smells like books and cocoa while you wait, Tyler. Nodded, please. And Principal Whitlow ushered him toward the library with a counselor whose cardigan had tissues in the pocket and a way of listening that makes words come out. Easier parents had begun to gather at the far end of the lot. The barricade shaped not by fear now, by patience. Teachers waved them toward the auditorium, where information would be given like water, clear and measured. The men from the bridge were walked to cruisers without spectacle. Alvarez gave Ray a nod that carried paperwork and gratitude and coffee owed. Denise Park's voice came across the radio with a quilt in it. Route 17 clear and delivered. School secure. County breathing again. Ray keyed his mic and let a smile bend his voice. Received. Lighthouse. Received. And somewhere in the dispatch room, a woman put her forehead in her hand for one private second and then went back to the board. Because there are always more pins to watch. The choir sang while children wrapped fingers around warm cups. Not a performance, a holding pattern made of harmony. Simple words about staying together and stepping light and keeping watch. No one asked them to sing. They knew what to do. Coach Daniels turned gym floor into a place where shaking knees could run a quiet lap and remember that bodies can turn fear into movement and then into calm. Counselors crouched eye level and handed out crayons to kids who needed to draw a bridge with stripes of red and blue. Teachers told the story in small pieces, the way you tell a story that has sharp edges, carefully and with a hand ready to cover a little ear if needed. Principal Whitlow held a brief assembly at midday. Short and tender, she gave the children language. For what they had done, you were a team, you listened, and you breathed. You moved like a single brave thing. There will be many mornings when no one will know a thing you did to make this school safe. We will know, we will remember, and we will celebrate it at the right times. She lifted a hand to Ray, and the gym rose to its feet in the kind of applause. That sounds like rain on a metal roof. Not wild, steady and cleansing. Ray felt the stitch over his heart. The letter sewn by hands he loved, warm under his palm. He bowed his head once, not to take credit, to say thank you to a room that had learned how to be a room by afternoon. The bridge was open again. Gus had bolted a temporary brace at the rear. Seaman promised himself a weekend under a bus with wrenches and a thermos. Walt had already asked the postmaster for 3 extra reflective triangles to tuck behind the mail bins. Ethel walked the crosswalk twice with Alvarez. and drew a chalk map of how whistles and palms would talk to each other if anything like this ever tried to happen near her paint lines. Denise sent a note to every driver in the county with a reminder of drills and a story of one driver who turned the morning into a map for others. The county felt different, not bigger, more woven at dusk. Ray drove the route again with an empty bus, the seats smelling of wet jackets and cocoa and courage. Paused at Benson Bridge and let the engine idle. The river carried the spike strip down to places where it would be nothing more than a strange blackfish in a story told by boys with fishing poles. He watched fog lift off the water and thought of the day he had promised himself this job would be more than a wheel and a paycheck. He thought of Amy's laugh when she called him an old movie hero. He thought of the children humming and the town answering, and a boy named Tyler saying his name for the first time on the right side of a choice. He lifted his hand and opened and closed it twice at his own reflection in the glass, the bird testing the wind, and he smiled. The next morning the bus doors folded open to the same curb, the same flag, the same bell, only everything tasted a little more like kinship. Emma climbed the steps and tapped the rail like a pilot tapping a wing. Liam and Luke slid into their seats with the secret grin of boys who had carried something real. Noah held his green card like a medal he could put back into service at any time. Grace smiled with her whole face and breathed so evenly you could set clocks by her. Ray sat and touched the stitch over his heart, the letter that had written. Storm with him, he clicked the radio. Good morning, Lighthouse, Route 17 rolling. Denise answered with a warmth that could melt frost. Good morning, Captain. River clear, weather gentle. You are seen. They crossed the bridge under a sky that had traded fog for soft blue, the rails holding the echo of a hum, the water below talking. In its old voice, the bus moved like a promise kept, and when they reached the far side, Ray flicked the interior lights twice, once slow, once quick, just because belonging also needs joy. 30 small spines lengthened in unison, and a chorus of whispers rose without being asked. We are a team, we are safe, we are home.